Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Monday Motivation here at VSM Real Estate. I'm joined live by Goran Vejzovic.
So live.
We are in the Lion's Den right now.
The Lion's Den.
Recording.
The new podcast.
The new podcast.
The Lions. Dead. You don't like my reverb.
I like how we have all the technology to do that, and yet we still do it in person.
Because it's more fun.
Yeah.
All right, we're done.
So, we promise.
Wake up.
Yeah. I wanted to start today off with a quote, and we're going to kind of build around that.
And just to be honest with everybody, we had about a handful of ideas of what we're going to talk about, and this one was kind of...
It's the freshest.
It's the freshest, and it was the most relevant, I feel like, because it applies to everybody.
It does, absolutely.
All right.
Hit us with it. Hit us with it.
All right, so I'm going to read a quote. No battle plan survives contact with the enemy. By...
I believe that's by Helmuth von Moltke.
Ooh, wow. This guy's a history buff. And now for extra points, when was he born?
I'm not sure, but I do think he was heavily involved in World War I. I thought he was the commander of the Axis front. I may be wrong.
Well, he was born October 26, 1800s.
18 what?
1800s. 1800.
Oh, okay.
There was no what.
You weirdly pluralized that and it threw me. So anyway, not World War I. I'm
right.
an idiot.
So he basically was a great general and a strategist who came up with this quote, allegedly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to claim that I did, but I figured it was very fitting for our discussion today.
Yeah, and can you give a little bit of reason why? I know there's some backstory of how this kind of started applying to you and how this came to be for the podcast today. Yeah,
for sure. And this kind of came out of, left field, but it was applicable to what we were discussing. And every bi-weekly, I have a strategy / coaching call with a person or a coach from the Tony Robbins organization, where we basically have 30 minutes on the phone and we
shout out Tony Robbins real quick.
Shout out. So where we basically discuss a couple different things that are, just key things in my personal life, but also business life, and how we can best,
getting a mentor, having a coach, getting someone to move you along.
It's very hard to explain, but when you're doing it,
feels great.
It feels great. It's really just, just like a coach and you're playing a sport, you're shooting the ball, but he's saying, hey, do this, pivot this way, pivot that way, release here, release there. That's all it really is. They bring you to a point, what they call a breakthrough, but it's on me to actually break through. They can't do it for you. So the coach would, in basketball, he would say, hey, here's the ball, here's the hoop, make it do what it do. And you actually have to shoot the ball in the hoop. So it's really similar to that.
Got it.
And that's what Tony Robbins refers to as having a breakthrough moment. So we talked about, multiple things, and this quote came up, so I figured it would be a good talking point.
Okay, so essentially just kind of breaking it down, I think the gist that we can all agree on here is that making a strategy, there is value to having a strategy, but you can't put all of your eggs in the strategy basket, because as soon as one thing goes wrong, you don't want your whole plan to fall apart and have you collapse.
So here's something that I took away, and it's a phrase which, it could apply to everybody, but the phrase is called addicted to strategy. And think about what that really means, okay? How many listeners out there, viewers or whatever, even you, Daniel, where, you have a goal, you set a goal inside your head, and you are so 100% sure there's, the way or the one way to go towards that goal, only to find yourself not achieving that goal because your one strategy didn't work. So what could you have done different? Maybe have another strategy?
Another strategy, tried harder.
Different tactic, maybe.
Different tactic, yeah.
And we just before we started the podcast, I gave you the analogy of a lot of people are very analytical or strategists themselves, and they often say, hey, 2 + 2 = 4. That's how I think. But then my retort to that really is, okay, what is your goal? What is the ultimate purpose or the why in this situation, or in this equation, I should say? Is it the 2 + 2, finding out that 2 + 2 is 4, or is it actually the result, which is the number 4?
Right, trying to get to 4 as opposed
most of the time, if not all of the time, your result, and in this case, is what? The 4.
Yeah.
And then the other question is, well, hang on a second. Was the only way for you to get to that goal, that purpose, the 4, by utilizing the 2 + 2? Or could you have maybe done 3 + 1?
Some multiplication.
Yeah. Or, how many other ways could you get to 4?
An infinite number.
An infinite number. Exactly. And that's what people miss. That's what I miss.
Yeah, no, it's very true. There's this really interesting story. I guess I won't do it justice a ton, but I'm going to let it roll. It's a story told by Ken Kesey about Neil Cassidy, who, if you've read On the Road, is mentioned in those books a lot.
Yep.
A lot of the beat movement.
Yep.
But he's telling this story about how Neil Cassidy saw angles and things that other people didn't see. So he's driving. Neil Cassidy doesn't have his license is expired. It's been revoked, and I think he was a little bit drunk or had some drugs in the car or something. And he sees this police officer pull him over, walk up to him, and this cop is pristine, right? Like polished boots,
everything's pressed,
everything's perfect, pressed shirt, haircut. Just precise.
He's not getting away.
Yeah. So he walks up to Neil Cassidy, and Neil Cassidy goes, here, let me get you my ID. And he takes it, and as he pulls it out, he sneezes on it, and then goes, oh, sorry, and then hands to this officer who looks perfect this sneeze-covered driver's license. And the officer just looks disgusted at it and hands it back. He says, get out of here. Like, what are you doing, right? So what he did that no one else no one else really does is he sees this guy as being, pristine. He likes everything neat, clean, tidy.
He was strategizing.
Invents some way on the fly to be able to circumvent and use this against him for his own benefit, to get him out of a situation. Whereas I think most of us would just try and play it cool, just accept whatever was coming our way. And maybe law breaking wasn't the best example to use, but I think it is a very clear example.
Or they already had a preconceived notion, if they were to get stopped by a police officer, what they would do or say. However, he really just kind of conformed to the moment and analyzing this particular cop and the way he was dressed and how he was going to approach the situation.
Yeah.
Which, again, helps him get to his goal, which was ultimately get out of a ticket.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, being able to see those opportunities and being fluid with the type of, that is more of a tactic. I guess the strategy would be to get to your destination and not get pulled over. Right. The tactic when something changed, when confronted with something on the battlefield, if you will, was to improvise and do something different. And that takes a lot of practice and a lot of skill. So if you don't start practicing it, if you don't start doing it, you're never going to have that ability.
Right. And stop focusing on, the why, or trying to figure out that one right answer. When ultimately you have like, hey, I have the ultimate goal, the ultimate purpose, my ultimate, whatever the result is, okay? So few people focus on the end result. And they focus on
scoreboard, baby.
Yeah, they focus on, okay, how I am going to get there, which, again, what does that give you? That gives you blinders or tunnel vision where you don't see the opportunities. And again, I did this just about 2 weeks ago and then applied the strategy, which then changed the course in this instance, a multi-million-dollar listing, which was a huge deal. All I did was remove the blinders. I didn't do anything, extraordinary. It was really just, mindset or mind power, the way you think about stuff.
I'm going to pose this to you though, and you can let me know if you think this is accurate or not. But I think that's the advanced strategy, what you're talking about, because I do think for a certain sense, one does need to build and copy and understand how to stay in their lane to some degree to be able to get the skill base to be able to improvise. Like if you want to be a jazz, saxophone player, you better learn your scales first before you start trying to get up there and wing it.
Right.
Because what I think happens a lot of times, and you see...
You have to be prepared no matter what. And that comes with, being prepared. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm just going to visualize my end goal with no real plan or
action
or way on how to actually get the roadmap. Mm-hmm. But all this exercise is forcing a person to do is don't have your blinders on. Don't think there's the ultimate way. Don't focus on finding the actual one only way to get your goal. Okay, when you focus on the end result, your brain will naturally think of all these different alternatives that you're not even, thinking about in order for you to get that goal achieved.
And in a world of infinite, there's a concept in mathematics called existence and uniqueness. Yep. And what it means is basically if you're looking at a plane, mm-hmm. right? So you're looking at a graph, piece of graph paper, any point. Right, one square of your graph paper is infinitely divisible. Right, you can continue to make it smaller. Yes. Exactly. So the idea is for certain situations, there's a certain point on that paper where that is the perfect place to be. Right.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what it is. Right. It gets a little bit more complex. This is a little bit more advanced math, but basically, it's just saying that there is a perfect place to be if. The decimal is 0.4873 repeating. Mm-hmm. If it was 0.3846, you'd be off. It's no longer the point, right?
Right.
It's no longer the unique point. And the theory states that unique point exists. Therefore, uniqueness in existence.
Right.
Right. So theoretically, you could look at everything in the world as that point exists. And if we're looking at it in such a small, we're talking down to such a small level that you can do something perfectly.
Right.
I mean, I'm clearly not doing this podcast that right now. But
if it was applicable to your day-to-day life...
Right, it's trying to find. But it's not. Well, there is some applicability, I think, in that you need to look for different options, right? It's never going to be in the same place every time.
But not perfection.
But getting closer to perfection, I think, is a great goal.
Yes, getting closer, knowing that you will never achieve it. Because, as you mentioned, you can infinitely go down, on that analogy of the graph paper or whatnot to find that perfect point.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of times, though, like searching for that perfection, a little bit of self-hate goes a long way in a matter of speaking. Wanting to do better, being disappointed in your results in the past, and fusing that to fuel you to move forward can be a good thing.
Right.
And the right person.
So I think everyone wants, the best possible outcome, and a search for perfection. Most people know that it's not really going to happen. But the problem is so many spend so much time trying to achieve it that time goes by and their goal never becomes realized. And to bring this back into the real estate realm, we discussed about the would-be investor where we get this all the time. They do every calculation known to man. They see 1,000 properties. They get so much paperwork.
Been there.
They get so much paperwork. They stack they pour over it day and night. They probably accumulate more analysis on a piece of real estate than I have my whole life. And then they get the disease called analysis paralysis. And that gets you how many properties?
Zero.
And that's really what we're trying to have people avoid, is the pursuit or the illusion of potential perfection.
Right.
Not to aspire, to do good, great things or quality things, but to know that really that's not the goal. Your goal is to buy real estate or to buy one house, 10 houses. Not to do it perfectly.
Yeah.
So you want to get rid of that mindset. And when you do, you'll find a way to acquire 10 properties. They may not be the easiest, an MLS deal straight to close, MLS deal straight to close.
Right.
And that's what pursuit of perfection, I feel like, will get you is that you'll get kind of caught up in the analysis paralysis where you look at every deal as not being perfect and you'll never get a deal done.
I think that's very true. And the other, I just wanted to go back and address my non sequitur about, complex math. But and the reason I was bringing that up and I wasn't 100% clear is that I was using to demonstrate that perfection is always a moving goal. So if it is something you think you can do.
Yes, sir.
If it's something you think you can do, you're not going to be able to hit it if you're going down the same lane all the time. You need to think outside the box and try and, breeze past it. Try and, get in the neighborhood, but it's never going to be in the same place twice. You need to be doing different things.
Yes, sir. Focus on the outcome. Don't be addicted to a strategy to perfection and then gain analysis paralysis, especially when it comes to real estate or whatever else you're doing. Anything, really, because you'll never get it done. You'll never get there.
Yeah. And then step 3, take over the world.
Exactly, like we are.
Is that it?
Is that our time?
Let's do it. Let's call it a week here. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Have a great week. Bye.